Slavery is back.
Welcome to a place where private business profit from a captive labour force, yet pennies are spent on medical services to a population in which the Indigenous, the poor and the mentally ill are overrepresented. Where isolation, humiliation and degradation are facts of life. Welcome to prison.
It depends who's telling the story, I suppose. The prisoners would have one view, the people who work in the prison system would have another, and I think it's up to people to decide where the truth is.
Give government propaganda and the media spin doctors the flick. And check out Doin Time for news, views and tunes on prison issues from Guantanamo Bay to Christmas Island to prisons and detention centres everywhere. Every Monday at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up and we're still talking about revolution.
Hello everyone, this is Peter. I'm doing the show today. This is the Doing Time show. This is 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM, on the dial, or streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. Today on the show we have pre-recorded an interview with Tamar Hopkins, who spoke about a recent forum at Melbourne Uni regarding racial profiling. Then we'll speak to Anthony Kelly, Executive Officer of Flemington Kingston Legal Centre, about the anti-masking and public order laws passed through Parliament following this recording. There will be following the recording with Tamar. So we'll just go straight to the racial profiling pre-record.
On the 7th of September 2017, there was an event at Melbourne University taking the shape of a symposium, and we're going to be speaking shortly with Tamar Hopkins, who was one of the speakers at that symposium, and she's a University of Melbourne Honorary Fellow, ANU PhD candidate, and she's going to be talking about Victoria Police and how they had a policy and still have a policy that bans racial profiling. And she'll be reporting about the consequences of Victoria Police and Australian society in general in allowing racial profiling to continue. And she'll talk about a report that is due soon, and she'll present the findings of this report by an Australian academic working group who are calling on Victoria Police to start collecting and publicly reporting their stop data. And so, yeah, she'll be coming up soon.
Now.
Hello, Tamar. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Marissa. It's good to be on.
That's great. Now, Australia is one of the few English-speaking countries where police do not report publicly on their stop and search practices. And I gave a little bit of an intro earlier on the show, explaining to listeners that there had been a symposium on the 7th of September 2017. Yep. And I believe that you were doing a presentation at this symposium. Could you just give listeners a little bit of an idea of the background and what you talked about?
Yeah, sure. So it just happened to time very well with the fact that a report has just been released by an academic working group looking into monitoring racial profiling, and this academic working group, and I am one of those that group, released this report on Wednesday, and then the symposium happened to be going ahead on Thursday. And so at the symposium, I talked about the content of this report and what it was about, why the report was necessary. I'm very happy to talk to you now about the background of this report.
Yep.
So, as your listeners will be aware, since the settlement of Hale, a big race discrimination case in 2013, Victoria Police has gone through a 3-year process of looking at their own policies and seeing and actually have set up a whole new division within Victoria Police called the Priority Community Division. And they have now introduced a policy that has a zero tolerance for racial profiling. So this is the first policy in Australia where police are very directly stating that they have a zero tolerance for racial profiling. So that's a really great step forward. The problem is that from all reports, the practice of racial profiling on the streets in Melbourne and Victoria continues. And in fact, only 2 days ago on SBS News, 2 young men told their stories about being racially profiled in the last few months. One of them has described to us being stopped 6 times in the 1 month in his car. And on one occasion he was stopped and had some medication that he required removed from his glove box and thrown out, and then was told to keep going, so to continue. So these stories of racial profiling are still existing in the community. And so what the Flemington Kensington Community Legal Centre did last year was auspice a group of academics to get together and actually start researching how racial profiling is monitored in other parts of the world. And a group of academics was pulled together, and I'll just read you the list of who these people are. There's Professor Janet Chan from UNSW, Professor Chris Cunneen. I'm on this working group too as a PhD candidate. There's Dr. Claire Land from Victoria University, Dr. Raul Sanchez Uribari from La Trobe University, and Dr. Victoria Sentas from UNSW. So this is the group of researchers that pulled their resources together to examine a number of different data collection schemes that exist around the world, and also examine the very extensive academic literature on data collection of racial profiling to see what scheme might actually be appropriate in Victoria, and start to actually allow us to measure and monitor the real extent of racial profiling on the street. It's really not enough for there to be a ban in policy. This ban needs to translate into practice, and the only way to understand if it's translating into practice is to actually monitor the prevalence of the problem.
And how will that be monitored?
Well, the proposal put forward by the working group is that there be a collab that works to, well, first of all, Victoria Police has to collect that data, and then that data needs to be provided to a research team initially to analyse and aggregate that data and make sense of that data to see what kind of patterns can be drawn from that data. And ultimately, the idea would be to have that data produced very, very regularly on the website of potentially a human rights body like the Australian Human Rights Commission, the Victorian Human Rights Commission, or a university, or even potentially the Victorian Crime Statistics Authority doesn't have the remit presently to produce data in relation to stop and search, but the Victorian government could well empower it to do that. So the idea would be that there would be an analysis of data produced by Victoria Police, aggregated and benchmarked, and then released publicly so that the community could see what Victoria Police's real progress on racial profiling is. So at this stage, there is no transparency. Victoria Police don't even collect that data, let alone make that public. So it really is. This scheme suggests that data must be firstly collected and secondly reported publicly in a meaningful way. So yeah, that's kind of in in a nutshell, what the idea of the scheme is. The second key proposal is that Victoria Police, in collecting that data on who they're stopping, also must start to record the reasons for that stop. In Victoria, currently Victoria Police's policy is that police should only act where there is a reason to do so. However, Victorian law is very permissive about what the police can and can't do in terms of stops. So, for example, there is no law restricting police to stopping a person on the street for any particular reason. The police are entitled at this stage to stop anyone that they wish on the street and question them. And that's, in fact, the same for vehicle stops. Under Victorian present law, the police can pull over any vehicle that they want to and ask them for their licence and their contact details. So we have an extremely permissive legal structure at the moment that really gives a green light to racial profiling. And so the academic working group is saying it's time that the Victorian government actually legislated to impose thresholds, objective, reasonable justification thresholds on police to initiate stops on the street and on vehicles. And it's really worth being aware that Victoria is behind in this. In New South Wales, for example, police can only stop a car where they believe they have grounds to arrest the driver. So that's the standard when of the threshold that applies in New South Wales. And so, why is Victoria so far behind here? Is a really big question. So there's the monitoring of the data that needs to happen, but there's also there needs to be thresholds applied to police before they can stop people. And what's been very interesting in this research is realising the benefits that happen when you apply a higher threshold to police intervention. What that means is that police will not be stopping the vast numbers of innocent people that they currently stop at the moment. They're going to be. It will mean that they're much more effective. They're efficient in what they're doing. They've got a higher hit rate. They don't waste their resources stopping so many people without any justification. So there are real benefits to the police. The other thing is that when you actually require police to have an objective reason for doing something, they're less likely to be able to rely on stereotypes, is what they currently do. They rely on race stereotypes. They rely on a range of just stereotypes that have nothing to do with criminality. So those thresholds are really important from that perspective. But of course, the real benefits are to the public, and what's becoming increasingly clear from the international research is the harm that is caused by unjustified police attention, and it's extremely serious harm that occurs. And the report that the two young people gave to SBS this week about just how it impacts on their self-esteem and their how embarrassed they were being stopped by the police, just what that kind of message tells them about their worth in society and their status in society when they're constantly being stopped by police.
And these are African people?
Yes, they're two young African people giving stories to SBS about this. So that's, exactly that's the point, Marissa, as well, is that not only does stops very impacting on your self-esteem,
yep,
but when that operates in a racialised way, you have whole racialised segments of the community being policed in a really different way to the rest of society and having these negative impacts on their self-worth, self-esteem. So it really means that we are creating and recreating racial underclasses in the very practices of the police on the streets. So this is a really serious issue, something that needs high-level attention, and so the working group has just finally released this report saying, hey, okay, Victoria Police, okay, Victorian Parliament, ball's in your court. Let's see some action.
So is the report out in the public yet?
Yes, it is. So the report is available on the website of the Flemington Kensington Community Legal Centre. It's in the Police Accountability Project website, and you can download a copy. It's a PDF copy. The Legal Centre also has some limited numbers of copies, so if people need hard copies, they can contact the Legal Centre for those hard copies.
And do the people and sorry, I'm trying to say this, outside of the community centres know about it, like the general public, and like has the mainstream media spoken
reported
about it?
On it? Yeah. So SBS 2 nights ago did a news story on the report. The Guardian has reported on it.
Oh, cool.
There's been a brief report in the Leader, as far as I'm aware, and yeah. So, but at this stage, and now 3CR, your program is reporting on it, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, it just came out, really. Hey.
Yeah.
That's right. It's just come out this week.
So since 2015, Victoria Police have had a policy that bans the racial profiling, and yet, and hence this research, African and Indigenous youth and other races are still reporting being stopped without justification.
Yep, that's right. So what that shows is that the policy that is in place by Victoria Police alone is not creating changes on the street. So it's not yet gone in to change police practices, and this is not so surprising when you think about how entrenched and a practice racial profiling is. The whole process of formation of suspicion by police officers has been found to be intrinsically linked to racial stereotypes. So this process of suspicion that the police use in their daily, everyday work is racial profiling is really embedded into that process. And so a mere change at the policy level is not going to change these very deeply embedded practices that happen. And so what really needs to change is there needs to be a threshold applied. Suspicions are not good enough. Police cannot be acting on the basis of mere suspicions. Suspicions are very susceptible to prejudice. So what really needs to happen is a new threshold that requires police to have objective evidence before they actually decide to intervene and stop a person. We haven't yet seen that. We haven't yet seen the actual mechanisms in place by Victoria Police that will lead to a reduction in racial profiling. But the other thing is that we can't measure the effectiveness of Victoria Police's policies unless they actually start reporting on collecting data.
Correct. But so I suppose what's interesting about the research is it's fantastic that there's been a report with the findings.
Yeah.
But how do we then instigate that process?
Yeah.
So that, like, we can't force the police, can we? We can't force them by law, can we?
Yeah.
So how do we...
Really good question, Marissa. And we're in a really interesting stage because at the end of last year, Victoria Police released a report saying that they were they were committed to exploring the how a mechanism for monitoring racial profiling may play out in Victoria over the next 2 years. So they've committed on paper to exploring how to actually start monitoring the problem. So that there is an open door there from Victoria Police to do something about this, and but at this stage, our understanding is that there's not much action that they've taken yet towards doing that exploration. So that's where this report comes in, is it provides that evidence base. We have looked at data monitoring schemes around the world. We have looked at the literature. This is the best scheme that we can see for Victoria Police. We've done their work for them. Here is something that they can go with. And we're proposing a whole kind of structure around how that process might happen to kind of assist Victoria Police in making this really fundamental step towards public reporting on this process. So I guess while that door is still open, we have some hope that we can work with Victoria Police to get them to do this. But there are other mechanisms, and firstly, the other mechanism is that we really need Victorian Parliament to recognise the seriousness of this issue and actually legislate these legal thresholds and legislate for data collection. So it requires not only participation by Victoria Police but also by Parliament in terms of creating some change in the laws in Victoria. So that's the other mechanism that we're using. We're speaking to politicians about this. The Flemington Legal Centre has a group of peer-to-peer educators who are going and speaking to politicians about the importance of this issue and something needing to be done. So that's another strategy. And the other thing is that, just interestingly, on the 31st of August this year, the UN Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination released a report into Canada, and it's made a number of really key recommendations about what Canada could do to prevent racial discrimination, and one of them was data collection by police, and so that's a really important mechanism to use, that UN mechanisms to place pressure on a country to do something like that, and that's an option that we could investigate here too. Is trying to get some kind of international pressure. So there's a range of strategies, I guess, that we can use to try and keep the pressure on Victoria Police. The other thing is, of course, the possibility of bringing another racial discrimination claim, like Hale Michael. So to actually say, okay, it continues to go on. Now it's time for you actually to do the real work and introduce and pick up on the recommendations of this report. So yeah, there's a range of strategies to put, but we do need the Victorian government to really engage with this process too.
Yeah, no, it's pretty important, and thanks for giving such a concise background, Tamar. That's much appreciated. And I think briefly it would be good at this point to mention to listeners, if you have the material there, very briefly, just to talk about some of the other speakers that attended the symposium.
Yeah, sure. So there were two other speakers. One of them was Talis Bissett, who's a PhD student at University of Melbourne, and her talk was about the way Victoria Police use language and policy to criminalise Africans. So it was a really fascinating talk that she gave, and she'd be really worth interviewing, 3CR interviewing. What she does is sort of examine a number of key police documents to look at the language they use in describing Africans, and it's an extraordinary host of stereotypes, and it's a very kind of dehumanising process that she has kind of analysed closely. So I think very, very worth you guys interviewing her. The third speaker was, and unfortunately I haven't got her surname in front of me.
Angela Vivian.
Oh, great, thank you.
So
she spoke very interestingly about access to police institutions for the purpose of research, and this is something that she went around to all of the police agencies around Australia to say that she'd be very interested in studying their police pursuit policies, and their drug policies, and would they be happy to give her access to them? She's taking a very collaborative approach in terms of research. She'd be happy for those police agencies to use that research, to kind of vet that research so that it wouldn't produce anything that they were not happy with her publishing. And yet, even with such an open and cooperative approach, all of the police agencies that she approached said, no, we're not going to give you any data on this except for Tasmania. So they were the only force that took an open approach. So that's really interesting, isn't it?
It is. Must have been a challenge for her.
Yeah, that's right. And it just shows you, why are police agencies so secretive about their policies
and not transparent?
No, that's right, and that they really are acting in the name of the state, and really the public has every right to know everything about how they operate. So
unbelievable.
It is quite extraordinary, and we had a lot of discussion about the role of researchers and how a lot of research is so hampered in Australia because of this problem of access to police information. So, I always find it really extraordinary about how little research is being done in Australia around police in comparison to places like the US and the UK, where there's just been so much extraordinary research, and we really are. There's not much transparency here. So, very interesting discussion.
Australia needs to get with the program. We're a bit backward.
Yes, that's right. Exactly.
So, I think for listeners, I think I will speak to you, Tamar, later, and perhaps get the details of the other speakers.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Tamar, do you have any final comments about this symposium, or even I believe there was also a lecture afterwards, but I think that's probably a matter for another show, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Topic. We haven't touched the Ben Bowling lecture, that's right, which was really fascinating.
I can imagine.
So I'm hoping that his lecture will be, the PowerPoints will be public. There was someone filming him speak, and it would be great if that was made public.
Ben Bowling, is that right?
Ben Bowling,
Professor
Ben Bowling. Yeah,
and he wrote a book, I think, about police.
Well, he's written extensively in the area of racial profiling, but also many areas to do with policing, and his current focus is on the globalisation of police, and at a whole lot of different levels. So looking at how the Australian Federal Police, for example, has multiple agents working internationally, and how police forces around the world have agents working in other countries, and what's going on with those agents, what happens with accountability, what happens when someone, when one agency, say the FBI, tells another agency, say South Africa, to arrest someone and they get it wrong, is who is accountable for that? Is it the FBI or is it the South African police? So there's just all kinds of fascinating issues that come out of looking at how policing is operating globally. Yeah, and how that impacts on the domestic as well.
The mind boggles, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
Tamar, thanks so much. And, when we finish this interview, don't go away, because I'd actually like to get some details from you.
No problem. Okay.
Could you just quickly repeat that report, where you can get the report from?
So the report that's just come out is called Monitoring Racial Profiling, Introducing a Scheme to Prevent Unlawful Stops and Searches by Victoria Police, and you can find it on the website of the Flemington and Kensington Community Legal Centre.
Thanks for your time, Tamar.
Thanks for
No problem.
Tamar.
Thank you.
No problem. Bye.
Bye. And that was Marissa and I doing an interview with Tamar Hopkins about the racial profiling symposium that happened a couple of weeks ago. This is 3CR 855 AM or www.3cr.org.au. This is the Doing Time show. We'll just go to an announcement. We'll just go to a track. This is Blue King Brown, Never Fade Away. Then we'll get on to Anthony Kelly. And you're with 3CR 855 AM or www.3cr.org.au. This is the Doing Time show. Now, Anthony Kelly was recently in the United States. He met up with National Lawyers Guild in San Francisco in Parliament, Victoria. Was just in Victoria in Parliament. The laws were passed for a new laws giving police powers to ban masks at certain protests, which could be seriously affect the freedom of expression. And we'll just go to Anthony.
Peter, can you hear me?
Oh, Anthony, sorry, I didn't know what was going on then. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, sorry about the technical issue. Anthony. So the Victorian Parliament just passed the Crimes Legislation Amendment for Public Order Act 2007 in law. Could you explain this to the listeners?
Yeah, sure. So it's basically a raft of amendments to the Control of Weapons Act and other acts, which changes some laws in relation to protest and public order events, and also provides police with some additional powers when they have a designated area or a gazetted area under the Control of Weapons Act. So some listeners may be familiar with the idea that police can publicly declare a particular area, such as a train station or some sort of public zone, a declared area, and that gives them temporary extra powers to search people without warrants or without any sort of suspicion. They can just, people remember quite a few years ago the police were routinely declaring various train stations, gazetted areas, and then putting people through metal detectors and patting people down under the guise of searching people for weapons. Yeah. They stopped doing those after a while because basically all they found was a few box cutters each time, and mostly from people who worked in box factories where they had to use box cutters. So there was basically they were brought in after some media panic around increase in knife crime, and now they're being used quite effectively and deliberately in protest scenarios, particularly ones where there's been conflict and direct confrontation between far-right and anti-racist demonstrators. And Coburg, you might remember last year, where the True Blue Crew and various white nationalist organisations tried to march through Coburg, and they were stopped by anti-fascist activists. And the ensuing confrontation in the streets was, caused a lot of outrage in the conservative media and establishment. And there were strong calls by the opposition and the police association and parties, even local councils, for more police powers and legislation. And so this amendment bill, or this amendment act that was passed last month, is basically the current government's response to that outrage, to that outcry. So that's the background of it. Yeah. So it was first used yesterday, Sunday.
Yeah, I was just wondering about that because I thought it wasn't legislated yet. I thought it had to go through Parliament and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's gone through Parliament. It was passed. Sue Penicic from the Greens, she's the Justice spokesperson for the Greens. She was basically the only representative who spoke out about the bill, and she proposed a series of quite reasonable protections, basically saying that if people are wearing face coverings for religious or cultural purposes, or protections, or wearing a mask for political expression, then they should be protected. They should maintain that right.
Yeah.
And the government rejected those protections, and basically it puts the onus or the discretion upon police at the time to determine whether, if you're wearing a face covering, whether it's designed to conceal your identity or to protect yourself from capsicum spray or crowd control substances, as they call them. So essentially, in a nutshell, the new law allows police to demand that people remove a face covering if it's during one of these designated area, a protest during one of these designated area times. So it doesn't apply to all protests. It doesn't apply to all areas. It only applies when the Chief Commissioner has declared an area to be a designated area for a period of time.
Oh, I see, yeah. Going back to the Coburg thing, also that was a peaceful protest about racism, and then the the nationalists started to, we're going to march through it, and they, some people tried to stop them because, it's not really appropriate to do that. And, I just thought I'd chuck that in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so basically it's meant that, rather than actually deal with the rise in right-wing violence and white nationalists marching through our streets, the government is just, restricting civil liberties even further by dealing with masks, which is not really the core of the problem at all. I would say that the core of the problem is, it's white nationalists marching through the city streets of Melbourne and terrorising, immigrant populations amongst everyone else and, amongst anything else that they do. There's also been a series of new offences created or emerging. So basically they've got rid of the old common law offences of affray, rout and riot.
Right.
And they've created new offences, statutory offences of affray and violent disorder. And both of them have, similar to what the common law ones were, so 5 years and then 10 years for violent disorder.
Right.
And people need to be reminded that the maximums are incredibly rarely, if ever, applied in these circumstances, but that's just their maximum. And but the issue again, and we raised concerns about this earlier this year, is that that the penalty rises for quite a number of years if they're done wearing a face covering. So again, it's that sort of this is why we're calling it the anti-mask legislation, basically. So if you're charged with a violent offence during a protest situation, you can cop a certain either affray or violent disorder. But if you do it wearing a face covering, the penalties are several years extra.
Oh, right. Yeah, and the mainstream media have been portraying the anti-racist rallies as violent, and it's the other way around, really, because there shouldn't be that discrimination on the streets of publicly yelled out. And, there's certainly a bias in the mainstream media towards anti-fascist organisations and groups and individuals who sometimes wear masks for a whole variety of reasons. And of course, there's also a media bias that sort of tends to protect white nationalist, white supremacist and neo-Nazi groups who are basically espousing mass deportations and the eradication of entire races. So it's quite extraordinary that unequal bias that mainstream commentary continues to exacerbate, and that's been reflected in America, of course, but also very much here. The equivocation of mainstream commentators when they deal with these sort of things, false equivalence, creating a false equivalence between anti-fascist forces and fascist forces. It's a continual, and this is reflected in Parliament's decision to legislate against masks, rather than do anything concrete against the rise of white nationalism. That's right. Can you can people go to prison with these anti-mask laws?
Well, I guess if the charges were extended, I can't really say that. It's hard to say because they've only been used this Sunday.
Yeah, this Sunday.
So and I'm not 100% clear what the charges are when people are asked to leave an area. But they will be committing an offence if they refuse to either remove their mask or leave a designated area. And so, and what they are, I think, are under the existing offences in the Control of Weapons Act. But again, it's not clear how they're going to be applied. And I guess this goes back, and I think I've spoken of this before, that another concerning factor of this is that currently the police have almost total unregulated ability to use surveillance, various forms of surveillance, but also facial recognition technology, which has been used for several years by Victoria Police.
Right.
And many people engaged in political action are cognizant of this, and for various reasons, and for that reason in particular, just in principle, they may wish to hide their identity in public protest situations.
Yep.
And so this law essentially prohibits wearing any sort of face covering to protect your anonymity. So we are concerned that it has an impact on the freedom for peaceful assembly in that sense. So people who attend protests with no intent at all to engage in political violence, that still have justifiable reason to cover their face and remain anonymous because they don't want their biometrics to end up in police databases. So this law restricts people in that category as well.
So how does this impact on freedom of expression?
Well, again, it's up to what it does is allow every police officer in these designated areas to arbitrate whether a mask or some sort of head covering is a legitimate religious head covering, or whether it's political expression, or whether it's to conceal your identity and always protect yourself from capsicum spray. And as we can imagine, ordinary police members aren't that well trained in, to distinguish between what's artistic, what's political expression, what's cultural, what's religious, and what's criminal. So it's a very bad law in that sense, leaving up to your rank and file constables to be arbiters of political expression.
Yeah, right.
So as an example, if someone was wearing a George Bush mask or a Donald Trump mask at a political rally, then and they might do that because they want to, ridicule a political figure, and it could be part of a street theatre. Then it would be up to police present to determine whether they're doing that to protect themselves from capsicum spray, or whether they're doing it as political expression, or whether they're doing it to hide their identity.
How strange.
It is, yeah.
Just very strange that whole concept of that.
Yeah, so it's dangerous in that sense. It could very dangerously impinge on a whole range of freedoms and civil and political rights for that sense. And that's why, we certainly spoke out about it strongly, the Melbourne Activist Legal Support. And, and other people such as Sue Penachuk have called it unnecessary and ill-defined, and it can easily capture people in wearing legitimate face coverings. So it's very concerning.
Yep. Have you got any final comments?
Oh, look, just that again, any law like this, it's pretty good just to educate yourself about what the ramifications are. So Melbourne Activist Legal Support's put out a note on Facebook. We'll put it up on our website as soon as we can, outlining the new powers, and the basic legal solidarity protocols apply to any of these things. Don't not come to a protest because of new laws. But again, it's just another it's another reminder how it's important to stick with each other, stay by people who are being arrested or searched or questioned, and educate each other about these laws and how they impact on our political expression.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Thanks very much, Anthony. We appreciate you coming on the show and talking about these important issues.
Cheers, Peter. Thanks heaps.
All right, see you later, mate. And that was Anthony Kelly from Melbourne Legal Support and Kingston Flemington Legal Centre. We'll just go to a track now. This is Charcoal Lane by Paul Kelly and Courtney Barnett.
In 2016, 3CR published a book to celebrate the station's 40th birthday.
Years in the making, Radical Radio, celebrating 40 years of 3CR, is a visually stunning account of the people and ideas that make up this dynamic station.
At 300 pages, the book includes hundreds of images and over 50 features on programs, people, music and technology from across the decades.
You can get your copy of 3CR's book for $49.50 at the station during business hours at 21 Smith Street, Fitzroy.
Or online at 3cr.org.au/shop.
Get a piece of your own history.
3CR's Radical Radio is available now.
3CR are selling keffiyeh Palestinian scarves in support of the last factory that produces them in Hebron, Palestine. All profits will be donated to the reconstruction efforts in Gaza and support Palestinian industry. These are traditional scarves available in red and black, or you can choose from a modern design. Go to 3cr.org.au/shop to buy online or drop into the station during business hours.
Hello?
Listen, I had a great idea. Male chauvinist pig versus hairy-legged feminist. You're still a feminist, right?
I'm a tennis player who happens to be a woman.
The battle you've all been waiting to see. The battle of the sexes.
You want to see it, right? Then get along and support 3CR at the Palace Withcast Cinemas, 89 High Street, Northcote, on Thursday, October 5th, from 6:30pm for a screening of Battle of the Sexes.
You're offering the men's winner 8 times what you're offering the women's winner.
The men are simply more exciting to watch. It's just biology.
The story of the infamous tennis match between Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs.
Tickets are $25 and $20 concession. You can purchase online at 3cr.org.au, direct from the station at 21 Smith Street, Fitzroy, or by phoning 9419 8377 during business hours.
All funds raised go to keeping 3CR on air. Battle of the Sexes screening, Thursday, October the 5th from 6:30pm.
Does she have the nerve?
Call Bobby. Tell him it's on.
And you're with 3CR 855 AM. We'll be see you next week. We're just going out with the Black Fella, White Fella song. Bye.
3CR is actively advocating for equality in the lead-up to the National Postal Survey on same-sex marriage. As such, we will not give airtime to the No campaign on the basis that it is prejudiced, homophobic and harmful to LGBTIQ people and our families.
Our community may hold different views on marriage as an institution, yet we agree this postal survey is a political stunt designed to appease prejudiced and homophobic views. 3CR will continue to advocate for equality in all areas.
At this particular time in our political climate, we need to ensure that our members, friends and colleagues know that 3CR is a safe space for all our community.